This is the aura effect that we'll be creating in the next lesson together, you and me. So I know that you understood all the core principles behind Shuriken, focusing mainly on creating the particles and using the most common use cases on a daily basis for VFX creation, and not focusing on any of the shaders, materials, or textures. Those will be provided with the project resources, so we can focus on this. Let me show you around, but before that, let me expand this one and set the playback speed to like 0.1, so we can better see this in slow motion. You can see there's a couple of effects that will be happening at the beginning and never again. So those are like intro or fade in type of effects. And then we've got the infinite loop that's just the aura going on over and over again. Then we've got a bunch of layers that I want you to try and recognize without me jumping into the particle systems. So gonna wait for maybe 10 seconds so you have time to think about it. But I'm gonna be slowly pointing out those layers. So first, obviously, we've got the main aura, which is the one that's expanding behind the character. Then we've got some of those trails floating up, some sparks, some rock debris, some little flares that will be going all around, this glow on the floor, and there's a bunch of subtle layers that will bring flare into the mix, but they're barely noticeable. So there's a glow right there and another one in the floor, which are creating volume, but they are not like the main focus of the effect. Then you've got those bluish, purplish toned flares right there. And also from time to time, you'll be seeing there's a rainbowy flare going on there. So it's more like a type of light energy feeling that's being added on top of everything. And as you can see, it's really conveying violence because everything is going super fast and the main focus of attention is right there at the bottom. So there's also a light spawner, spawning light in the character. You can see the light spilling in the character. If I pause this, you'll see that the character is not lit, but if I play this, you'll see the light beginning to affect Bexa right there, which is pretty great. Then there's a bunch of those rocks that will only spawn at the beginning, and this kind of like flare ring that will be appearing each 7 seconds, something like that, just to give up a bit more of a pulsating feeling. And then there are a couple extra elements here and there, so let me just jump into those effects. I hope that you were able to recognize some of those. So first, there's the main aura, right? This is in a vertical billboard, and yeah, this will follow this rotation, but not horizontally, so it's giving that kind of a strange look if you're looking at it from this angle, but it should be fine otherwise if you're just looking at it that way. I could have used another approach for this, but I just wanted to have a vertical billboard into the mix. Then the aura energy, this is a flipbook that I have created, right? I made that one using Photoshop real quick, and I wanted to have this little animation, like a flipbook animation, so we can actually try out the flipbook animation on our effects, the texture sheet animation module. As you can see, it's using a 3x3, but it's limited to 6 frames, so it's not going to display the Clevender logo down there at the bottom. Then the orbiting trails are going to be using the trails without the render mode set to none, so it's not going to display any billboards. So it's just trails orbiting and using forces of lifetime and whatnot. Then there's the sparks also orbiting using noises, and it's just a glow with variance to it. Then there's the flare, which is gonna happen at once at the beginning and never again. So yeah, it's just a flare to give a bit more like energy, light feeling at the start of the particle system. Then there's this glow, which you can see is just a spherical shape type of glow that is actually a billboard. It's not a vertical billboard. In this case, it's just a billboard, which will always be pointing towards the camera. Then the background floor glow, which is essentially another glow, but for the floor, and in this case, it's a horizontal billboard. Then for the glow, there's a main glow, small glow right there, a bit brighter than the other one. Let me deactivate the light for now. Yeah, so you can better see those, all right? And if you combine those, that's the result. It's kind of giving that air volume to the mix. Then the floor radial effect, which is this type of effect. Then again, this is a horizontal billboard. Flare, this is another billboard just pointed towards the camera. And as you can see, it's kind of hard cutting there through the floor, but you wouldn't be noticing that with all the rest of the elements. Still, it's got a bit of depth fade, but maybe I could crank that up a bit more so it's more pronounced like that. Then the rainbow background, it's kind of hard to see because it's kind of super subtle. I reduced the opacity a lot, so if I crank this up, you better see what's going on. This is just a rainbowy flare that's additive, and this will act as if it was like light, right? So that's the main intent, conveying a light feeling. And yeah, as you can see, it's just a simple rainbow texture. And then the rock debris small, those are a loop that it's using a cone-shaped emitter, and it's using a mesh that I have created, which is essentially just a small rock, like this one, right? And then for the small in, there's just a bunch of them that spawn at the beginning, and just to give that initial burst feeling. Same with the rock debris big, they will only happen at the beginning, so it's like breaking the floor a bit and moving the environment around. In this case, the floor is just a plain floor, it's got no rocks to it, but yeah, I mean, pretty nice addition. Then there's the noise, which will just be giving a bit more tertiary elements to the overall effect. The tertiary elements are like adding a bunch of spice into the mix. It's something that's not the main focus, but it's something that if you keep looking at the effect, you'll notice if you pay close attention. But those are just like the embers on the fireplace. You're going to be looking at the fire, at the wood burning. You're not going to be looking at, some embers that are going through. So that's the main intent for that. And as for the noise in, this is just the first impact noise that's going on, and it will be repeating each 7 seconds just to keep a bit more flair to it. So light spawner, it's just going to be spawning this point light. So mixing all of those together, this is the actual result. It's pretty cool. I really like it. We can move it around also, and the aura will stick, but some of the particles will be left behind in this case. So you can see, yeah, some of those are being left behind just in case the aura might move at some point. And I want to mention that this aura is inspired by this aura visual effect that I came across in Pinterest, I think, which is done by Realtime VFX. So you can see that this is the main aura from which I took inspiration, but it's using different elements, different approaches. It's not exactly the same. It's, the same kind of like structure, but I approached it differently, and so we could apply all the techniques that we've learned so far in the course. You can see that now it's going to activate this other blue aura. So you could essentially take the aura that we have made in Unity and transform it to be blue, but we'll be making that in the next lesson, not in this one. So yeah, I really hope you like this aura. I think it's pretty cool, pretty great looking, and hyped to see what you can come up with in the next lesson. See you. I just realized that I didn't turn on my face light for this lesson, so I guess I'm just gonna be darker in this lesson. Right, bury the light deep within.